Welcome to Ear Biscuits, the podcast where two lifelong friends talk about life for a long time. I'm Rhett.
And I'm Link. This week at the Round Table of Dim Lighting, we're talking about life post-vaccination. We're talking about when I'm fully vaccinated, I'm gonna fill in that big old blank.
And we're both half vaccinated.
Half-vaxxed as of this recording.
And soon to be fully vaxxed.
And so we're gonna talk about the excitement and the anticipation and then the re-entry into more of normal life, or just how we've anticipated that in our brains versus the reality of starting to carry that out. And also talking about a phenomenon called re-entry anxiety.
And so, you're not talking about space travel.
No, I'm talking about.
Or sorting the mail.
No, not talking about that. But yeah, so I think, you know, there's kind of a dark side to getting on with our lives, having been vaccinated. And of course, that's not to say, you know, we're recording this and then releasing it a few weeks later. So just in full disclosure,
we're always a little bit ahead of the game.
There's some things that, you know, we're not as current as possible, and things change and update so quickly. I just want to put that out there.
Yeah. And you know what? Because we're talking about vaccines, there is a lot of vaccine hesitancy out there, right? So, you know me, I can't just move along. I can't just get my vaccine and not say anything about it. So here's what I wanted to do before we get into the rest of the episode.
Yeah.
I wanted to make my vaccine pitch, my pitch for why I think you should get the vaccine. I got it, and I think that you should get it if you're not in a risk group and if you qualify.
There's a lot of information floating around, and it sways people. Most people, like me, you know, you just wanna make a decision and get on with your life. And, you know, I don't go on Facebook. I find myself avoiding engaging in a lot of the information and the deep dives because it stresses me out, and I just want to get on with it and move past this. And that's not necessarily a healthy thing, but I know that there's a lot of people like me out there that are, well, they haven't gotten vaccinated and they don't know if they are, but just looking at the information and all the conflicting opinions is very intimidating, overwhelming, anxiety inducing, and you just wanna curl up in a ball and avoid it.
We live in a very interesting time where it is legitimately very difficult to move forward with decisions like this without at least some sort of hesitancy because of the way the information and misinformation spreads, right?
And because there's so much attachment to what these decisions mean about who you are, who you're affiliated with, what your core beliefs are.
Everything has been politicized.
It's very, it's loaded. All these decisions and perspectives are so loaded.
Yeah. Well, here's what I'm gonna try to do. I'm gonna try to put this in, again, I'm not a scientist, I'm not a doctor, you already knew that. I'm a guy who eats weird things on the internet and has a podcast with his best friend. Hi, Link.
Hey.
But I am a concerned citizen, and I've been thinking about this in a way that I hope can cut through a lot of the numbers and the arguments and a lot of things that can get kind of confusing and misleading, and just kind of talk to you as a friend. Now, first of all, if you think that the medical establishment is an extension of the deep state and the vaccine campaign is a scheme to inject microchips into people to control them, this pitch is not for you, okay? You can fast forward, or you're probably not listening already. But if you are listening, I do have something for you at the end, so please stick around. Ooh. This is my pitch for those of you who are on the fence. You have reservations about the vaccine. You've heard about the side effects. What about those blood clots? Weren't these vaccines developed really quickly? How do you know that they're safe long-term? And by the way, COVID isn't that dangerous. Why would I get a vaccine with unknown side effects when I'd probably be fine if I got COVID? If you thought anything like that, this is for you. Okay, so let's start with the ultimate purpose of the vaccine. The vaccine is not primarily about protecting you individually from the virus. vaccines are our best available tool for eliminating disease across a population, in this case, all of humanity. This is how we end a disease. So framing the decision around your own personal risk is kind of missing the point. This isn't about you as much as it's about us. It's not a me thing, it's a we thing. Now, speaking of the we thing, if we don't reach herd immunity, there's a real risk of COVID continuing to evolve and form variants, and we're gonna be dealing with this for a very long time. The more people who get the vaccine, the more likely we beat it. And even if we don't reach herd immunity, which given the vaccine hesitancy and the limited rollout around the world, there's a very real possibility we will not reach herd immunity as we would like to. But even so, more vaccines mean less of a problem with COVID for everybody down the line. So it's not like a lost cause by any means. Now, you may have heard that the vaccines don't stop infection or transmission, but they only lessen the symptoms. And you might be asking, well, why do I have to wear a mask after I get vaccinated? Well, scientists are actually very hesitant to make claims until they have good data. It's kind of their thing. But they're getting a lot of data very quickly. And the latest data indicates that these new vaccines not only prevent severe COVID and hospitalization almost completely, but they also very likely prevent infection as well as transmission. Therefore, the hesitancy to move beyond masks and social distancing has been because we want to make sure that that is the case, okay? That's a big part for that, a big part of that. But what about the risks? This seems to be the thing that most people talk about. What about the risks? Specifically, the thing that I hear a lot is, if the mortality rate of COVID is so low, is it worth taking the risk of getting the vaccine? Well, the mortality rate of COVID isn't that low. I mean, there are a lot of factors and data still coming in, but COVID is likely at least 10 times more deadly than the flu. But I'll give it to you, even if you get it, especially if you're not in a risk group, you very likely will not die from COVID. Now, for me, a healthy dude, not that young, 43, but I'm not in a risk group. I don't have risk factors, but it's the long-term complications from COVID that are the most concerning to me personally. Long-term symptoms affect people of all ages and have occurred in people with mild, moderate, and severe COVID-19. These can include lung damage, heart damage, lasting fatigue, joint pain, neurological disorders, loss of taste and smell, sleep disorders, and these are showing up in significant numbers. Okay, I get that, but what about the risks of the vaccines? Well, let's start with the blood clots from the J&J vaccine, the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, because that's what, at least right now, as we're recording this, that's what everybody's talking about. 6 people out of about 7 million who were vaccinated developed blood clots. And as of today, as of recording this, one of those people has died. That's horrible, that's upsetting. But just to put that into perspective, it's about 1 in a million chance of getting a blood clot and a 1 in 7 million chance of dying from a blood clot from the J&J vaccine. To put that into perspective, you're much more likely to die in a car accident on the way to get the vaccine than you are to get a blood clot from the vaccine, much less die from the vaccine. But keep in mind, they still paused the J&J vaccine in many places because of this risk, because the scientists are actually very concerned with safety, so much so when there's this statistical blip on the radar, they stop to evaluate. They're not trying to take advantage of you. They're not trying to use you as guinea pigs. They're actually showing that safety is their number one priority. Okay, but that's J&J. That's only like a small percentage of the vaccines. What about mRNA, the Mrna, which is what I got, and the Pfizer, which is what you got? Mm-hmm. This stuff's unproven, right? I mean, we are just a bunch of guinea pigs being experimented on. Well, we have a lot of good reasons to believe that mRNA vaccines are safe, likely safer than traditional vaccines for a number of reasons. So they underwent some of the most rigorous safety testing ever, fast, quick, yes, but rigorous nonetheless. Mm-hmm. But what about the long-term risks? Well, these vaccines are actually not that new. Trials were conducted for mRNA vaccines in 2009 for prostate cancer, 2013 for rabies, and mRNA vaccines were already in clinical trials for HIV, cancer, and Zika patients before the development of the COVID vaccines, and nothing found in those trials led to hesitancy to move forward with COVID-19 vaccines. This isn't something that was just pulled out of the back pocket of scientists and doctors in response to this pandemic. It was something they had been working on for quite some time. And the mechanism of mRNA vaccines is a new approach to vaccines, but it's actually really straightforward, and there are lots of advantages, including safety. Now, there's a lot of misinformation about this, but messenger RNA doesn't get anywhere near the nucleus of the cell that contains human DNA, and it disintegrates quickly after the message that it is communicating is read. It does not alter your DNA because it cannot alter your DNA. Now, you may have read on the internet about scary things like antibody-dependent enhancement, the idea that getting these vaccines is gonna cause you to actually have a higher chance of dying down the line from getting COVID-19, especially a variant, or that there are ingredients in the vaccine that might cause cancer. All of this was taken into account when developing the vaccine, and there is no reason to believe that these are risks from the vaccines. Just plain and simple, there's a lot of good literature on all of this and how these things were studied in depth throughout the development, including the antibody-dependent enhancement, which is something I see a lot of people talk about. Now, does that mean that nobody will have adverse short-term or long-term complications from the vaccine? Of course not. People are going to have adverse reactions to this vaccine. And with so many people being vaccinated, we're going to see significant, statistically small, but significant, because anything that happens to a person is significant and worrying in some people, right? The most common adverse reaction is gonna be an allergic reaction. That's kind of what we've seen so far. But we have every reason to believe that the long-term complications from COVID itself pose a much higher risk. So here's the bottom line. The only way to justify vaccine hesitancy as it relates to vaccine risk compared to the risk of COVID itself is to drastically overestimate the risk of the vaccines while drastically underestimating the risk of COVID itself. Do you see what I'm saying there? People who have hesitancy about the vaccine tend to also diminish what the real risks of COVID are. It's kind of like saying, I'm not gonna go on that flight to California to free solo climb the face of El Capitan because flying is dangerous. Or maybe a better example, lots of people who are scared of flying have absolutely no problem driving to the airport, even though they're way more likely to die in the car on the way to the airport than in the plane on the way to their destination. This is an irrational fear based on risk perception, not actual risk. And the same thing is happening with a lot of people who are getting the vaccine, who are not getting the vaccine. Same thing is happening with a lot of people who are not getting the vaccine. So, in summary, step one, properly framing the issue is key. Assessing whether or not you should get the vaccine should be framed first as a community issue, not as a personal one. The collective risk to everyone is much higher when you don't get the vaccine. In step two, you gotta properly frame the risk. We have good reason to believe that your personal risk from getting the vaccine is significantly less than your risk from acquiring COVID and experiencing adverse effects. Now, this is still taking into account the fact that you voluntarily get the vaccine, but you won't necessarily get COVID. You see what I'm saying? People are like, well, I don't choose to get COVID, but I'm choosing to get the vaccine. Doesn't that inherently increase the risk of the vaccine? No, the COVID risk is still greater, just being a person who lives in the world. So even if you're thinking about this as an individual, it still makes sense for you and your personal safety to get the vaccine. So please, for all of us, get the vaccine. Now, if you're a conspiracy theorist, thank you for sticking around.
That's why I've just been hanging out here.
You may be wondering why I took this time in our sometimes comedy podcast, usually comedy podcast, to put together this message. I'm gonna come clean. I'm a part of the deep state. I'm being personally paid by Dr. Fauci, who is a friend of mine who has my Venmo account, to communicate this message on behalf of the deep state, to the end of being able to control as many people as we possibly can in the long-term future. Dr. Fauci and I regularly attend, sorry Link, I'm letting you know this for the first time as well.
I'm
regularly attend
kind of floored.
Hollywood parties together, at least we did before COVID. We look forward to going back to those parties where mainly the thing that we do, I mean, there's cocktails and there's mingling, but we kind of do that for like 90 minutes and then we all go to the basement and that's when we do the real good stuff, which is drink the blood of children. Now you may be wondering, how do I have such good skin at the age of 43? It's not some sort of like face washing and, exfoliation routine. It's regularly drinking the blood of children.
How is that?
It's got a metallic taste.
Okay.
But we put it through a Brita.
Oh.
And you still get the stuff that you need, the adrenochrome.
Gotcha.
If you want to stay young, if you want to be in control, if you want to be on the side of the people who are going to win in the future, join me and Dr. Fauci. Drink the blood of children. You heard it here.
And yet I haven't been invited. Okay, cool.
I didn't think you were ready yet.
Okay, there it is. The laptop's going away. I appreciate you organizing those thoughts and putting that out into the world because it's easy to be overwhelmed by information. I think a lot of it has to do with people are making decisions based on who do they trust and why, and what do you really want personally? Like what are your motives and your values, and how do those things all add up? So there's a lot of people who are just it really comes down for a lot of people, and I think this is my experience a lot of times, is just who are you following? Who are you trusting?
Yeah.
And why? Really, why?
Well, we could do not just a podcast, but a whole show on how you choose where you get your information from and what the point of that is, and how if you can trust medical. I mean, first of all, some of the numbers that I threw out and the statistics and the data, I know there's a lot of people who are just like, well, you just believe all the propaganda data. You don't believe the real data, which I can find on the internet. Again, that's such a pervasive problem in our society right now. There's nothing I'm gonna be able to say that's gonna sway you on that. The only thing I can ask is just continue to be open-minded and, self-critical. I'm not gonna try to change your mind on that. I'm just gonna joke about Dr. Fauci. I'm not joking though, it's true. I drink the blood of children. I wanna make that clear.
All right, so let's shift gears a little bit into what now? We've made our decisions. We're about to, in a couple of days, I'm gonna get that second dose in my arm, and then I got 2 weeks later, and then I'm totally free! And this is what I've been looking forward to since the very beginning of lockdown. And then so I think there is an evolving set of guidelines associated with what you can and can't and should and shouldn't do once you're fully vaccinated. So disclaimer at this point, again, this is 3 weeks old, even the moment it comes out because of when we're having to record this conversation. So we defer and direct you to the latest and greatest guidelines that we are not giving here in what to do and not do when you are fully vaccinated, okay?
Having said that, I think we can safely assume, or for the purposes of this conversation, so we don't have to keep coming back to that point, I think that the way that I'm thinking about this question is, I'm just kind of saying, if things were to suddenly get back to normal and I was able to do all the things that I did before, how do I perceive those things and what am I thinking about those things, whether that be going to a movie or a concert or whatever. I don't know exactly when those things are gonna happen, but I'm just saying for the purposes of this conversation, I'm thinking about like the next year and the freedoms that might come back.
Yeah, and so let's start in that positive aspirational place, and then I'm sure we'll talk about the anxiety flip side of that and kind of dealing with that. And even some of that I've personally had a taste of already, and it surprised me. But let's let's just start at what are the first things? Just like throw out words.
Restaurants.
Okay, for me.
That's a big one for me.
Movies. I haven't been to a movie.
Movies, I'm on board with movies.
We'll come back to all these.
Concerts.
Yeah, in a way that I've never felt about concerts before. I'm like, now's the time. I'm gonna be that concert guy.
Yeah.
Extended family visits. Going back home to North Carolina.
Parties.
Oh, now you're really getting into it.
Parties with people that you know and parties with people that you don't know.
Wow.
There's two kinds of parties.
Okay.
So I'm talking get-togethers, and then I'm talking like parties. I'm talking about me and Fauci in the basement with drinking the blood of children with a stranger and not worried about anything, especially the children. I don't know how many times I'm gonna keep coming back to that because I know it's offensive to people, but I just can't help it.
I'm really tempted to just keep going harder in it, but I don't want to do it.
People are just gonna, I mean.
But by the way, totally unrelated. We've got our friendship rings on today.
Same ring. Yeah.
Look at that, right? Hold up your hand there. Look at that. Friendship ring day. This is a previous sponsor. We have not discussed this. So as a total aside, I feel like we need to get this out of the way, okay? We are wearing the exact same ring.
It was a sponsor, Manly Bands. We might as well say it again.
Right.
And one of the not stipulations, but one of the opportunities was you get to get a ring from.
I'm not gonna promote something unless I can experience it and know that I want to promote it.
But you requested just the silicone ring, because they have basically like a rubber ring that you can wear when you're doing like activities and stuff. A lot of people wear them full time, so you don't have to worry about like we know some people who've got their fingers taken off because of wedding rings.
Because the ring got hung on something.
But you're like, there's a lot of sentimental value with the ring that you have because it was your grandfather's ring, so you're not gonna take that off.
No, I'm not gonna replace my wedding band.
So you asked for the silicone ring, and I was like, well, I just bought my wedding ring for like $200 before we got married. I'll keep it around. But I've always wanted to have a wooden ring because you know me and wood.
That's not how I remember it at all, Rhett.
You have a tendency you have a revisionist brain. You have a super revisionist brain.
Just because we disagree about something doesn't mean that you're the one that's right. So let's be clear on that. And we do have a witness.
Are you gonna tell me, are you about to tell me that you chose that ring?
No, I'm gonna say, okay, we were given, these are pricey rings. They're gonna send one as a sample, but they're not gonna send two. That's what we were told.
True that.
So then it was like, oh, well, who gets the ring?
But that was when you said you didn't want to change your wedding ring because it has sentimental value.
That didn't mean I didn't want a ring.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Exactly, because then you just said what ring you wanted.
But I was like, I'm happy to change my ring.
And then I'm like, you know what? If I really wanted a ring, this would be the point where I would say, I'd like to try out a nice ring, but I elected not to. And then you were like, oh, they have wood rings? So then you chose this ring that we both are wearing.
Okay, that's the part I thought you were taking issue with.
I was like, you know what? I'm interested. I was like, do they have one of those rings that won't rip your finger off, a rubber ring? I'll take one of those because they're cheap. And we'll try it. Now, by the way, at this point, having gotten a sample that we did not pay for, I would gladly pay for another one, but I did not pay for this one to match you. What happened was the ring that you ordered came and it was too small. I don't know, you screwed up the sizing.
Yeah, I did.
Your fault, not the sponsors.
Because instead of sizing, we told them what we thought my size was.
And then I'm like, I bet it would fit my finger. So the ring that was too small for you fit perfectly on my finger, and then I had it.
On your right hand.
And you didn't have one.
Right.
But then you ordered another one because you really wanted it, even though now I was like, I got him. I know he's not gonna love this. We have friendship rings now.
So you're gonna keep wearing that?
Yeah, and I'm gonna call it our friendship ring.
And while we're talking about rings.
Because I know that makes you
while we're talking about
a little
rings,
uncomfortable.
I've been wearing the Aura ring. You know, this is basically, a fitness ring, biometric, it measures biometrics. It is a fashion statement, but that wasn't my primary reason for wearing it.
Oh, I ordered one of those too. Well, so we'll have double friendship rings.
We both have new Aura rings coming, and so the question is,
Yeah, we're
We're gonna have 2 rings that are the same? We should have gotten.
I think that's kind of cool.
We should have gotten different, because there's multiple options for Aura rings. We should have gotten, maybe they'll send us 2 different kinds.
And we can look into that. Okay, sorry for the aside, but yeah, I enjoy having a friendship ring with you. Don't you?
I'm sorry that I accused you of, you do have a revisionist mind, but I thought that what you were saying was, you were gonna say is that you chose this ring, and I was like, hold on a second, no you didn't.
You knew I wasn't gonna replace my wedding ring, so you assumed I didn't want a ring, and I have 9 other fingers, that's all I'm saying.
But I didn't know you were gonna start doing the multiple rings on hands thing, because I kind of just started doing that.
Oh, see that's your, see that can't, but, and I'm stating, and I'm saying, you know what? Multiple rings can't be your thing.
Okay, and I agree with that, just like glasses can't be your thing.
And beards can't be yours. We are gonna morph into one person.
I mean, listen, I don't have an appointment yet, but I just wanna go ahead and give you a fair warning that glasses, the last time I went to the eye doctor, over 2 years ago, I was told that I needed glasses. But
and you haven't gotten them because I'm the guy with glasses, but it's starting, you're starting to send me over the precipice, because I've noticed that how big you want things that we need to read blown up, and I'm like,
right.
That's kind of getting to be too much.
Yeah.
I mean, the dude really can't see if they're
I'm having trouble seeing.
Okay, so back to post-pandemic. Let's go back through these things. The first thing that came to my mind was movies. And then right when I'm on the precipice of like scheduling, and I'm telling the kids, I'm like, I don't even care what movie it is.
Right.
Like I'll see that King Kong versus Godzilla if I have to.
Right.
Even though I have no interest whatsoever in seeing it, I just wanna be in a movie theater. And you know, someone told me when I got to this point in the conversation with them, they said, you know, you can rent out a whole theater now because you gotta pick a slower time and just have all your friends show up. I'm like, no, I wanna be there with strangers. I wanna do the old thing. I don't wanna do this rent out the theater thing, and I don't care what movie it is. And I know exactly where I'm gonna go. My favorite theater, ArcLight Cinemas. The only theater at the highest standard where they charge the same amount, no matter if you're a kid or whatever, so it deters. There's so many reasons besides just like not incentivizing bringing more kids in a disproportionate amount.
And for those of you who are not from Los Angeles and haven't been to Los Angeles, haven't been to an ArcLight Cinema, just a quick little summary of why they're the best, okay?
It is more expensive. They control every aspect of the environment.
Are you gonna control the conversation?
Well, it's kind of my thing, you know, it's my favorite theater.
Well, it's also my favorite theater. Can I have a favorite theater too?
No, you can't have the same favorite theater.
It's everyone's favorite theater in Los Angeles. They bring someone out before the show. You know how sometimes like you're at a movie theater and like it's not loud enough, or it's too loud, or it's not in focus, and then you're like, am I gonna have to be the person to get up and miss part of this movie and go tell the guy who's serving popcorn that they need to tell the guy who's running the thing that this is not working?
No.
That doesn't happen at ArcLight. They bring a person out who greets you, everyone, and says, hey, my name's Daryl. Welcome to this showing of King Kong versus Godzilla. It's a great film. I enjoyed it.
This is how long it lasts. This is how long the previews are gonna be.
And I'm going to be standing over here to the side to make sure that the picture and the sound quality are perfect before we move on.
Yes.
They do it. So you don't have to talk to the doofus who's serving popcorn. Not everybody who serves popcorn is a doofus. It's just, in my experience, I've had to go talk to a doofus before about this, and that's why I'm frustrated.
And you know
what?
That
doesn't happen at the ArcLight. And
it literally is the first thing I've been looking forward to doing.
And if you take your phone out and text at the ArcLight, you will be—
there's a laser that comes from behind the screen and it'll obliterate you.
Yes, you will be murdered. You're just, you're taken out.
Right.
Because that inhibits everyone else's experience, okay? If you care about film, or should I say cinema,
but they bring
about this.
They bring in a clone of the person. So if
no one ever knows.
If you're there with loved ones and you're really enthralled in the movie and somebody pulls out the phone, yes, they're obliterated, but they're immediately replaced with a clone.
And their phone is gone though.
That's all of these reasons make it the number one thing I've been looking forward to. And they just went under.
all this conversation
They waited until the end of the pandemic, like literally right now, to announce, oh, you know what? Can't do it anymore, guys. Can't hang on any longer. We're gone. Like weeks before, everyone can start, I don't understand the timing. I'm so frustrated.
And not just
ArcLight. Now I gotta find another theater that I'm willing to watch movies in.
Not just ArcLight, but because Pacific Theaters bought ArcLight, Pacific Theaters, which is I think is the theater that's at the Americana. That's not opening either.
Crap. Oh, well, I think other companies will have to come in and still make
because
a movie
they're still
theaters.
gonna, what are they gonna turn it into, like a jump gym, like one of those trampoline places? No, they gotta still make movies there.
I literally don't, I now have to find a new movie experience because I was exclusive
I've heard there's still reason for hope. That there might be, like Jesse said, it had something to do with like, this is like a thing that happens. I think that there are also a lot of people in Los Angeles who are making a huge stink of this already because maybe this is a film town. We all stay through the credits at the end of the movie. It's a super film snob town because this is where so many movies are made.
Okay, maybe there's
And so I think that we may come together as a community and say, we don't just wanna watch movies at our houses. We don't wanna just watch movies at theaters where they don't have it in focus or it's not loud enough.
Yeah.
We wanna watch movies at the ArcLight.
Okay, I'll hold out a little hope. It's kind of like that thing where a company goes bankrupt and then like a few months later they're still around.
Right.
It's like, what? So there was some sort of like tax
like Trump
ploy?
Yeah.
Yeah, what happened?
Yeah.
So that was literally my number one. If you were to put your number one, it's not restaurants?
No, it's not number one. It's not number one because I really like my new television. You know, I finally did the 4K OLED television.
So what is your number one?
Eating. I mean,
restaurants.
And there's just something about eating at a restaurant versus getting takeout from a restaurant.
I've really forgotten. I think I'm gonna go to a restaurant and be like, oh, yeah, this should have been my number one. Like the food tastes so much better. Like we supported our favorite restaurants locally and they'd send you their like signature dishes deconstructed so that everything doesn't over meld together. And
you lose the presentation of the food. You lose, and many times you lose the freshness of the food because it's coming to you in a bag. You also lose a big part of it for me is just the ambiance. I mean, for me, eating is about all the senses being stimulated, right? And I love eating at restaurants. I love the entire experience. And yes, I understand that there are restaurants that are open for outdoor dining and that there's socially distanced dining. And then
we haven't been doing that,
right?
Though,
so
because we've been following heightened protocols associated with production, so that our limited crew we can all protect each other and continue, making our shows.
Our standards are higher than just the general California standards, which are already higher than the general sort of national standards.
So we're admittedly behind.
Yeah.
But it's like, even in my own brain, I've locked off the restaurant zone because it hurt too much after a few months at the beginning of the pandemic to dwell on it. So now I'm finding it difficult to reopen those compartments. But I think when I go to a restaurant, the other part I miss is that, yes, you still got the whole phone situation in your pocket, but the how it sets the stage for connection. You stare across the table at somebody, me and Christy on a date. A date is much different out than trying to recreate it in your own home. Matter of fact, we just got to a point where we thought we were gonna do the date thing and then it just didn't happen.
Yeah, we did it. We held on for a little bit.
It just didn't happen.
We did a thing for a while where we would, like I would turn the lights down, put on some music, and we would eat at our little sort of breakfast nook, and then we would make the kids eat in a different room or like eat in the dining room. And
right.
I don't know, it worked for a while, but it's just so hard to maintain the separation and the discipline.
Yeah, and then you're still doing the dishes and the preparation.
Yeah.
Even if you order out.
Yeah.
It's like just being waited on in a restaurant is so awesome. And
I mean, I love the experience. And
I'm starting to get excited now because it's like, I think I'm gonna be at a restaurant and I'm gonna be like, wow, I feel like a king. Like there'll be just this renewed appreciation for the whole thing. Look, someone's coming up and just anything I want.
Well, and
I can just tell this stranger and they'll go away and they'll come back with it.
And that's one of the many reasons that the cost of living in Los Angeles is so high, compared to North Carolina, for instance, is the event, like we're so close to so many things, including so many great places to eat. Like there's just so many, you can never eat at the same place twice and keep having these completely dynamic, excellent dining experiences. I'm not saying
it may be one of
your
your favorite things in LA as well.
It's one of the things I'm like, when I think about how much money I pay to live here, I'm like, you kind of have to start reminding yourself of the advantages, because especially one of the reasons there's been this mass exodus of people from Los Angeles during the pandemic is because they're like, if all I'm doing is hanging out at home, why am I gonna be in this tiny little expensive place when I can go to a less expensive, larger place and have the same experience, right? I totally get it. We're not moving because we've built our lives here and we've built our business here, but it's like, I'm ready to experience the city that I'm paying so much for.
Well, I came so close to buying a van that, I wouldn't live out of it, but I would travel and semi-live out of it on little trips, and that's taking a back burner now. It's like, I can rent somebody else's van whenever I wanna do that, but so that's the update on that aspiration. I had the tunnel vision of the pandemic goggles, and I'm gonna rent a van again. Trust me, I'm gonna do it. But I'm pretty sure I'm not gonna buy one.
The other aspect of this is parties. Now, again,
before we get apart, let's go with the friends, because I think that's the incremental thing.
That's what I'm saying. There's two aspects of this, and so I'm saying that the first part, which I've experienced a little bit of, is getting together at people's homes, right? Now, very recently, so we got together with another. So there's a couple that was fully vaccinated. Jesse and I are, Jesse's fully vaccinated now. I'm vaccinated, and once you're a few weeks out from the initial dose of these Moderna or Pfizer, you're very well protected, especially if you're around other people who are vaccinated, right? And so we see each other and we see this one other family, but there was a friend who we hadn't seen in over a year who was at this family's house and texted us and said, hey, I'm over here.
I'm fully
vaccinated. They're totally cool if you guys come over. And it was a Friday night. And
it was like 7:30 or 8 p.m.
It was like 8. Here's the thing. I had my plan. And my plan was we were gonna watch a movie. And I don't even remember what it was, but I had it picked out. And then we got the text and I was like, I kind of had this plan, but I haven't seen this person in a year. Yes, let's go. And we go over there. And again, there's like hugs. First thing was we're hugging. This is a little bit unusual, right? I haven't hugged a lot of people.
Yeah.
In a long time.
Now you're not a hugger, so when that happened, what was your experience? Because there are people who are huggers, and they're like, that might be the top of their list to have like physical connection with.
I'm not a
friends.
I'm not a hug instigator, but I'm not anti-hug.
Yeah, but you're not.
I'm a good hug receiver.
Right.
And I'm a good hug reciprocator.
You're kind of neutral. I think you could take it or leave it. I think I could too. No judgment here.
How was it?
So given that you could take or leave a hug in normal life, what was it therapeutic? Was there a release? Was it the same?
I don't want to be dramatic. So
don't be dramatic.
I'm just saying.
Be honest.
I'm saying that I'm gonna be honest and say that it was really good, but it wasn't like, man, that feels good. That feels different. That's like a giant step forward. It did not feel that way for me. It just felt, in fact, as we then sat down and began to have a conversation around the kitchen table, it began very quickly to feel like old times again. And I actually consciously sort of stepped out of the conversation and went into my own head and thought to myself, like, this is interesting because I feel like I'm totally here again. Like, I feel like the past year is just a memory. Now, I know, again, it's gonna be a slow process of getting back to normal. And I know this is not, I say this, you know, being sensitive to the fact that this is not the case for a lot of people, but it just kind of hit me. I was like, I'm immediately back in the same mind space and social space and social experience that I was before all this happened, like having this conversation. But I could tell that not everyone at that table felt the same way.
And you should also say who from my family was or wasn't at that table.
So we began to talk about you because you and Christy had also received the text from this person to come over.
Yep.
And there was a conversation. And the conversation was, they were like, you think Lincoln and Christy are coming? I was like, well.
This is between you and Jesse, or you already at the
at the table. I was like, well, you know, Lincoln Christy, the Neil plan may already be in effect, and this may be difficult for them to dislodge from this. And then we had a conversation.
And you pretty much knew what that plan was.
Well, and I'll just say, it's funny because, okay, so it was the McCarg's house. And because Mike said, well, here's the spectrum. On this end of the spectrum, in terms of, I can't remember the term that he used, but it was basically like social flexibility or something like that. He was like, you have the Neils and the McCargs.
Yep, together on one end.
And at the opposite end of the
very
spectrum,
socially inflexible.
You have the McLaughlins. And I was like, well, let me butt in and say, that is true. The McLaughlins and the person who was the guest there. I was like, that's true of my wife, but I'm kind of in the middle. I kind of straddled the fence on this one because I will admit that it was not easy for me to just drop what I wanted to do and watch a movie and come over. I tend to kind of get into a plan. And as soon as we finished that conversation, knock, 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 your wife and daughter show up. But noticeably, you're not there.
Yeah. So just to rewind a little bit, yeah, we're sitting down, like it's 8 o'clock-ish. So all the Neils, without prompting now, we all gather in the TV room on the couch and we put on Survivor every single night.
Ooh, wow. On Friday night you did this?
Even Friday night. Like,
wow.
I gave up a long time ago on trying to like say, yeah, but on the weekends, we're not doing Survivor. That's a weeknight thing. On the weekends, we're gonna like do our own things, or we're gonna watch movies, or it's gonna feel like a normal weekend, not just like another night, like every single night we watch Survivor.
Friday night,
I mean, even
with your kids?
Even me, I was like, this is too much, guys. And I lost the argument, and then I was okay with that.
Okay.
And then months later, I'm really okay with it. And then this one night, it's like any other night for the past year. We look forward to this. We relish in it. If anything breaks that up just within the home, somebody gets mad, you know? It's like, if somebody's not as into WandaVision as the rest of the family, introducing, like putting WandaVision above Survivor or has been a problem.
Yeah, like how do you watch other things or how do you watch movies?
We double up. We don't watch movies. We watch what
we don't watch movies.
We watch.
I'll just be honest with you.
If it's whatever is on Disney Plus that the new series that we're all gonna watch, we watch that on Friday, and then we watch Survivor afterward. It's ridiculous.
Nightcap.
I know it is. We're so extreme in this.
What are you gonna do? Like at this pace, you're definitely gonna run out.
We are halfway through the season 39 finale.
How many seasons are there?
40.
So you're getting close to running out.
And last night we paused it at a strategic halfway point of the finale because it's a school night, it's getting to be bedtime. And I'm like, guys, I don't think we should go, like tomorrow night, we're gonna watch the rest of the finale. And then the next night, I know you're gonna wanna just start with season 40. That's the last one. And we've heard that it's like the best season. I don't wanna go to it. I wanna wait. The complaining starts. Like, no, Dad, you're being and it's like, there are some seasons that we skipped. I think we should delay the gratification of season 40, go back and watch some of we're so into it now, let's watch some of the seasons that people said sucked.
You've become dependent.
We are dependent on Survivor every single night.
To survive.
So I'm like, listen, we're gonna blow through season 40 in 2 weeks. That's the pace we've been on.
Yeah.
We kept increasing. I mean, it is this like dependent compulsion leading to addiction kind of trajectory.
You're gonna have to figure out some sort of.
And I'm trying to point that out to him last night. I'm like, listen guys, we need to delay season 40 so that we can build it up more and look forward to it. Even if we skip 3 nights, I wanna keep that season 40 dangling out there until it's closer to season 41 coming out. And then I'm also talking about when Lily goes off to college, I'm like, you know, what are we gonna do with Survivor? She's like, we'll just watch it and talk about it. I was like, no. We wanna save Survivor for holidays when we're all back together, and then we're gonna watch those seasons. This is how small my world has become. Yeah. 2 weeks ago, we talked about the wanting to look into communes. It was very tongue in cheek, but it was rooted in this feeling that I have of, I really like the control and the perceived is different kind of safety that has nothing to do with COVID or pandemics, of just smallness, of this is my world now, and I know what to expect, and it is fostering some things that aren't healthy and that are, this is what I discovered. And this is a moment, it was a test. We were sitting down, and then Christy looks up and she's like, oh, we're invited over to the McCargs to see so-and-so. And he's over there now, he's fully vaccinated. And she locks eyes with me, and I bet if you were to ask her what she saw in my eyes, I think it would be fear. And it had nothing to do with the friend or how much I love and miss him. It wasn't just about a threat to the routine, but it was, things are changing. Now, we had already planned to get together. This was a Friday night. We had already planned to get together on Sunday night.
Mm-hmm. At my house.
And I was getting mentally prepared for that. And then this was dropped in my lap, and I'm like, well, you know, I was getting ready for Sunday, and now this thing right now? And there were some mitigating circumstances in our house. I had actually just gotten the vaccine the day before and experienced a headache, and then I thought I felt totally good that day, the second day, which is the day in question. And I went for a bike ride. When I got back, the headache came back. I did too much too soon on day 2, shouldn't have done that. I actually didn't feel good. And you know, there were other members of the family, you can figure it out by matter of elimination, that were reticent for their own reasons. So that led to, I'm gonna stay at home with them, and we can blame it on the kids, but I have these things going inside of me, and I don't know what's happening in my brain and with my emotions, but I'm not willing or ready to do this. I'm not motivated enough to overcome these feelings tonight. I'm working forward to being ready by Sunday. And then I ended up, we watched Survivor without Christy and Lily because they gave us permission to, and I felt dirty and horrible, goodness. And I said, it didn't feel right, and I don't wanna ever do that again. And then I went to bed and my head was killing me. And I was glad I wasn't there. I wouldn't have been a positive contributor to that reunion, even though I hate that I didn't get to see our friend, and I don't want him to think that it had anything to do with him specifically, but it really brought to light things that I was just not aware of at that moment. And then, so we can get back to the positives, but we might as well go through this anxiety, because that's what I never had what I would call social anxiety. I don't think. It's so hard to remember.
So you think that that's what it is for you?
Well, okay, maybe that's one way to describe it, but.
What if you were invited to let's not just say it's a get together with people that you know and you've seen a bunch and then one additional person, but like an actual social thing, like a party.
Like I do, like even when we have like when you did your monthly game night and you had like more friends show up for that, including us.
Back in the day, pre-COVID.
Pre-COVID, there were sometimes, I do notice that there's a little heightened level of anxiety that I experience associated with, even with that. But some of it's just excitement that can feel like anxiety. So I didn't really know what was going on, but I will say that there are plenty of times that I'm not totally at ease, even with like my second tier friends that like I totally trust and enjoy and love. So there was an inkling of that I recall from pre-COVID. But now on Sunday night when we got together, I gotta tell you, the thing that you saw when you looked around the table and you could see in people's eyes, they were experiencing something that you weren't. You felt totally normal and maybe exhilarated to be back together. Even on Sunday night when we all got together, I actually felt, when we left, I felt a little discouragement. You know, there's a lot of self-judgment that that tends to come into play with me, but I'm a lot more in my head right now because of this whole re-entry thing than I even realized.
I did notice that you were quieter than normal.
I felt weird. It was just like, because it's a combination of getting reintroduced to something that I feel like should be just like flipping a switch.
Well,
but it wasn't. And it wasn't anybody's fault, and nobody did or said anything to make me feel weird. It was just, and another part of it might just be sheer unmet expectations. You know, you build something up and you look forward to it, then you let go of it, and then you realize it's coming back, and now there's fear in the equation, but you still have this hope that like, this is gonna be so dynamic. This is gonna be, I've never been to prison, but I would be interested to talk to somebody who has experienced re-entry from prison.
It's probably a little more intense.
More intense, but there's a sliver of parallel at least, you know?
I could tell that I made note that multiple people, both on Friday night and on Sunday night, were not acting like themselves. Mm-hmm. Or what I remember of them in those settings, right? And I did notice that about you. I was like, Link's being like, typically he's very talkative. Sometimes we have to pull him back a little bit.
Yeah.
But that is not.
And I really thought I would have been like,
happening.
Especially with the prep, I'd be like, I don't want to come on too strong.
But what I ended up doing was, after dinner, we're all kind of like hanging out, and I needed to use the restroom. So I went upstairs to use it, and I will do this at most get-togethers at my house. I will go upstairs, and then I'll be like, I'm gonna just hang here for a second. But I did that on Sunday night.
You did disappear for a little bit.
But I always do that and always did that.
It wasn't longer than I would believe like an involved dump would take.
I don't even think it was a dump. I think I just.
Oh, I know. I'm just saying you had
a pee.
The amount of time that you took was undercover.
Well, you gotta keep in mind, you don't want to like draw attention to how long you're in the bathroom.
Right.
But people start thinking things. They start assuming things. But that's my introversion. That's my, I got time for people and I got energy for people, then I have to pull it back. But I actually, as it was happening, because I'm also in my own head about this a little bit, I was like, am I having my energy has been impacted by this pandemic and I've got low capacity for people right now? Then I was like, no, you're just an introvert and you did this before the pandemic. Mm-hmm. So I just kind of went back downstairs, but in the midst of the conversation, like, all right, we're having a conversation. To me, I was also thinking and noticing it. I was like, I kind of feel like I'm just back where we left off, but I can tell that more than a few people are not at that place because our conversation feels different. There are more gaps. There's more like awkward.
Why do we keep talking about dogs so much? Like that's the thing I told Christy. I was like, I was disappointed that like, I kind of thought we would talk about what we were experiencing, kind of what we're talking about now. And I was like, I feel like I would have had a better time if we could have just talked about that. But maybe you talked about that some on Friday night without us. And I was like, but we ended up talking about dogs like on four different times. Like we were over here eating and then we moved over here and then we went inside and it was just like, I was like, we don't have as much to talk about. We keep going back to dogs.
I don't know.
It was, but that's what I thought.
But you've always attached expectations to what conversations will be.
Yep.
That's not a pandemic thing, that's a link thing. There's many times, and this is sort of a gripe between my wife and you, this is like one of the sources of conflict between Jesse and you, is like, Jesse will start talking about something, you'll be like, can we, let's not talk about that right now.
Right.
She's normally not dogs.
Cause like I could have said, I think legitimately, we've talked about dogs 3 times tonight. I'm curious, how are you guys doing? Cause I feel weird as shit right now. It's like,
yeah.
But I also didn't have the energy and I didn't want to do that at that moment. But I do own the conversation police thing because it is an outward manifestation of my inner critic and the control thing that has to do with expectations associated with connecting with people. Whether that's like the dynamics, I think about it too much. Oh, who's included? Who's interesting? Can we, are we, it's too much for people. So on that piece of it. So yeah, it's kind of like parsing what's true of my former self, what's new in the mix now, and this being a process. I even, I did a search because I know that there's people who are dealing with this more like, and to a greater degree. There's people who might have already been agoraphobic or have some sort of social anxiety already that wasn't something like me that's like, did I have that?
Yeah,
is that where this is coming from? Nearly 50% of Americans say they feel anxious about resuming in-person interactions post-pandemic, according to a report from the American Psychological Association. A phenomenon psychologists have dubbed re-entry anxiety. Hey Kiko, put an echo on that. Thank you. Re-entry anxiety.
I've heard a lot of people talking about it.
I found, I just want to go through this and I don't want to get bogged down in it, but SCL Health, I think this is like a Colorado hospital, doesn't matter. Very practical advice to deal with if you're struggling with re-entry anxiety, just like a handful of things. First, they say, start small. If you haven't left the house in much over the last year, don't suddenly rip off the Band-Aid and walk into the most crowded marketplace you can find. Start small, plan a hike with a few friends, work your way up from there. Slowly confronting your sources of fear with a little more exposure each time. Exposure therapy is what it's called by doctors. This next point really resonated with me. Start soon. If anything is making you anxious, you should confront the issue as soon as possible. The longer you wait, the more the anxiety foments and works itself up. So not only does social isolation have short-term health implications, it can impact mental health long-term. It doesn't mean you should throw a party, and you need to be subject to, the guidelines as we said up front, but a little socialization goes a long way. You got to say, I'm engaging in this process of reentry, and I have to take baby steps, and I need to start soon or now. Another thing was, piece of advice was looking at the big picture. A good thing to do is to ask yourself, what truly makes me happy? And whether that's family, the outdoors, returning back to life, let the big picture be a major motivator to overcome the fears in comparison in combating reasons to not start or delay. You know, I was gearing up for Sunday. I wasn't ready for Friday. I listened to myself and, you know, but if there wasn't a Sunday plan, I might would have felt differently now about my decision to not go on Friday. Mm-hmm. And then 2 more things: buddy up, find someone you know and trust who's in a similar phase or has a similar experience and understands you, that you can buddy up with and support each other through the reentry process. Talking about it, I mean, even this conversation is freeing for me, because it's like, hey, you've heard what's inside of my head. I've kind of given you this emotional brain dump, so to speak. So I think the next time we're, like if it's next weekend that we're in a small group setting, you know, there might be an opportunity for you to say something to me or me to say something to somebody else who's open up to me, that type of thing, you know? I think it really helps. And then, they note in the end, for some people it's gonna be a breeze. Like the way you described it could potentially, you know, I could experience jealousy or envy or beat myself up because it's not as easy for me as it is for you. And that's no fault of yours. And it's my responsibility to process that in a way that doesn't, you know, drive a wedge between us and somehow then send a message that you can't enjoy your reentry experience. That's not.
Well, it remains
that's
to be
not
seen.
fair to you.
It remains to be seen as well.
But hold on. I just wanted to make one more. But the main point I was trying to make that they were making at the end was, if you come to a roadblock, you can seek out help that's beyond just a friend, you know, professional help to get you through this. And there ain't no shame in that. What were you gonna say?
I think the thing that I am, I'm not gonna be surprised if I experience some anxiety. I'm interested to see is a big crowd. Like if we're going to a basketball game and there's a herd of people like going through this small door and then they're all crowded together. Like I can only assume that when that kind of thing starts happening more and more often, so not socially distanced, large gatherings, people packed into places, people at concerts. Yeah. People are gonna panic. You know, I think the reasons for the anxiety, they may not be rational, but a lot of them, they probably come from different places. Like I can imagine that one of them is just like, I'm seeing a lot of people close to me touching things. I'm watching their mouth move. If this is like,
gosh, the mouths, just the scene of mouths.
People touching things. And so if that's something that you struggle with, is just the idea of the germs and of it all, the humanity of it all. Yeah. Then that could be something. Then it just may be, social anxiety. I don't know how to say the words that I used to say when I meet people. But that whole surrounded by people, I'm not saying I anticipate it's gonna be a problem, but to me, I feel like if I'm gonna have an anxiety issue, I doubt that it's gonna be with, you know, my friends that I see on a pretty regular basis. But it might be in a group of strangers. Like that could be where something like, all of a sudden this is such a new experience. And again, I mean, I guess it depends on where you're at in the world. It depends on where you're at in the country. I'm sure there are people listening to this podcast who are in states where they're like, it's kind of just been the same for a long time for us guys. Are like, you guys are crazy and California is nuts.
We're affirming their decisions all along the way. And it's like, well, we're not trying to affirm your decision if you didn't lock down or wear a mask or whatever, but yeah. So yeah, when it comes to parties, like with friends, I'm committed to like getting back to that magic spot. But then beyond that, like, okay, because to me, it's not about catching anything or exposure or I don't know, I don't worry about that. It is the social thing and like, it's just like getting reacquainted with that. So it's like the parties with strangers. It's like, oh yeah, it's like, I was on the fence about how much I enjoyed that beforehand. So well,
that's the thing that's kind of odd to me is, we've done at least an episode of the show about our approach to Hollywood parties. And I'm not talking about the Fauci parties where I drink the children's blood. I'm talking about like industry parties where you dress up and you have cocktails and the music is too loud. Neither of us have ever been a fan of those kinds of parties because of the whole, I can't have a conversation with you right now because I can't hear you because of the music, and is this for clout, or like what is the reason I'm walking around this party? Who am I trying to talk to? Am I trying to tell John Mayer that I love him, or am I just trying to meet somebody that I might work with? And
both. As
we've established, you tend to be more comfortable with being like, well, I'm just gonna go up to Lil Dicky and start a conversation. And I'm like, well, I'll let you go up to Lil Dicky and start a conversation, and then once you're in, I'll come and join it, right? As we hilariously told the story one time. But interestingly, it's so funny that the whole story about Lil Dicky involves him telling you that his name is Dave, and now the show that he makes is just called Dave. The way that it play, every time I see that show advertised, I just think about that story. But
I can't bring myself to watch it for that reason.
My prediction is that everyone's gonna have some latent sort of anxiety in this, and again, I'm not minimizing. There's people who are really struggling, and this is a serious thing, and they are going to need to get professional help. I understand that that's not my scenario, that's not my situation, and I have empathy for the people who are going through it. But I think that everybody is going to have, there's gonna be awkwardness when you go back to that party with the music and the talking to each other, which was already difficult for everyone involved, even though we tend to not talk about how difficult it is. Throw in the fact that like, I haven't been in an environment this loud, let alone with this many people. When that, my hope is that out of in an effort to kind of help us all ease back in, that the DJ will be like, man, I'm gonna go a little easy on these people.
I'm telling you.
You know what I'm saying? Because I just think that there's so much opportunity for parties to be transformed. I mean, we did a whole chapter of this in the book of Mythicality about how we didn't like loud parties. I just feel like there's an opportunity here to not just go back to the bullshit party where you can't hear anybody.
Yeah, I got more thoughts on this that relate to something else that we've been talking about and laying groundwork for.
But you're not gonna bring it up now. You're gonna bring it up later.
I'm just telling you so that we won't forget to talk about it later. Another thing, I talked about the prisoner being released analogy, but I also think about like an astronaut who's been in the International Space Station for like a year, and then they come back to Earth, and they're like, even though they've worked out and everything, and they've stayed healthy, and they've been focused on what it is they've got to do, then they come back to this world, and the gravity takes its toll, and it takes a while to like even figure out how to physically walk properly, I think. Doesn't that happen?
I'm sure, yeah. Depends on how long you've been up there.
And relate to people. So I'd be interested to see what they're saying about that. There is an astronaut masterclass, but I don't think it's related to this.
An masterclass?
Yeah. So I'm interested in one of those. Let's bring on an astronaut to talk about how to re-enter the world socially.
Not sure okay. If he makes the connection to that, yeah. Okay.
Or she. Women can be astronauts.
That's true. Too. If they make the connection to that.
There we go. So this is just kind of putting a capper. At least this is how I hope. I hope we're rounding a corner that like, there's not gonna be any, we don't have to return to any type of lockdown. Like I don't even want to talk about that. I'm hoping this is a bookend on an experience that if you go back and listen to our conversations as we were entering into it, we were thinking of things like, okay, we're living history. There are opportunities associated with this. Let's embrace this moment for what it is. Let's be as responsible and healthy as possible. But let's also embrace the experience of it. So when we're done with it, we have lessons from it and we can move forward. I'm not ready to say that yet because we're realizing that we're still having, the re-entry is an experience in and of itself that I want to have that mentality of I'm embracing this moment by moment as part of history, and giving myself grace to be on that process of reentry, that it's okay that it's not flipping a switch for every single person, and that we're not on the same pace, but we are on pretty much the same trajectory of moving past this. And the ones that we love, some of them need an extra hand or a little more understanding, more patience to get there.
Well, I think the fact that a lot of us, a lot more people can relate, people like you as an example that wouldn't have said that you had any sort of social anxiety, who are like, is this what I'm experiencing now? I think a large number of people experiencing that is a great opportunity for more people to relate to those who had social anxiety disorders before the pandemic started.
Yeah, and to astronauts.
So we can, never hurts to have a little more empathy in the world, and to have those conversations about other people's perspectives.
Yeah, it's my rec. I'm gonna give it to you. I recommend this week that you go through your old shoes. Put on a pair of shoes you haven't worn since the beginning of the pandemic. You got those shoes that are you shoved them to the back of somewhere and you're like, I'll bring these out for something. I'm not necessarily talking about dress shoes. Well, it doesn't matter. Walk a mile in someone else's shoes. That someone else being your former self. I think it's I don't know, it's just like a practical, physical act of embodiment of reconnecting with your former self. And then after walking in those shoes all day, you realize why you haven't worn them in a year, and it has nothing to do with the pandemic. Then either give them to Goodwill, or if they're really horrible, just throw them away and let it go. And consider it an act of embodiment, an exercise in remembering your former self, but also deciding that you're not obligated to still be that person moving forward. Maybe there's things you want to change. You looking at my shoes today?
I was seeing if you're like wearing like I haven't seen you wear a different pair of shoes.
I don't take the advice I give.
Oh, okay.
Walk a mile in someone else's shoes.
I think it's good advice. I think there's a third option.
Do it.
That somebody just told me about, because I have a tendency to go through all my old clothes and shoes.
Yeah.
And then donate all of them, which I think that is priority number one, is to donate. But somebody said, you should save some stuff that's more notable and indicative of the time period, because your kids will want to wear it at some point, or want to be like, this is my dad's old shirt from 20 years ago. These are my dad's shoes from 20 years ago. And I think that I give away most of it, but keep a few pieces as memorabilia for your children. Somebody just gave me that advice, and I don't even remember who it was, but I was like, that's a good idea, because I think about the stuff that I wore in college, and I see it in these pictures, but like, it'd be cool if I could be like, Locke, here's the shirt I wore in college. You gonna wear it in college? Or just, do you want it just as a piece of history?
So keep them for that reason.
No, give away most of them. Keep some of them.
The experience is the more important part.
Right.
It's not really about what you do with them afterward.
It just hit me,
All right. Hashtag Ear Biscuits. Let us know what you think. What's your experience on reentry?
And I am genuinely interested if there's anybody who what I had to say about vaccines made you think something new and different. I continue to be interested in being able to be a force for good, and I want to know if I just pissed a bunch of people off, didn't change anybody's mind, or if you're like, oh, actually, I'm gonna do this now. I just for my own personal data points, let me know, or just tell me why I'm wrong. I'm also very open to that. Hashtag Ear Biscuits.
To watch more Ear Biscuits, click on the playlist on the right.
To watch the previous episode of Ear Biscuits, click on the playlist to the left.
And don't forget to click on the circular icon to subscribe.
If you prefer to listen to this podcast, it's available on all your favorite podcast platforms. Thanks for being your mythical best.